For 10 years, I haven't publicly spoken about this era. Not since this time in my life had come to an end. 10 years later, it's time I opened up and let you all in. July 31st, 2012. That was the day before I would go on a journey spanning over a year that would define much of my life as a guitarist, forever. That poster you see right now was made by Tasha Sakoti. At that time, we had only been dating for a little over a year and a half. Before I go to what happened on August 1st of 2012, I'll tell you about how I ended up being chosen to be an Incite. Since having graduated high school in 2009, there wasn't anyone from back then I hadn't met that didn't hear from me that I was out for blood. I have all the love and respect in the world for my musical peers when I say that I was the hunger that separated itself from the starving artist. From the first band I joined in my high school's talent show, Yes or No, to squatting as the wildcard shredder for Canadian Contraband, to forming a Motley Crue tribute band for a one-off show, to even having played my first show outside of Arizona in Las Vegas with a band called Sinister Ego. There was even a time I met a turntable DJ who offered to have me come to a venue here in Arizona called Big Fish Pub during his set and play alongside his turntable as he played Pantera's Cowboys from Hell straight from the vinyl. I wish I had footage from that night. It was a really cool thing that I was a part of.
Hey John! What's up, punk?
Chasing after my music goals, I wasted little time and made the most of it from these bands I had the serious privilege of playing alongside between winning local guitar competitions. Fast forward past all of that, I'd begun making a reputation for myself in my local scene. One day I'd gotten a Facebook message from a woman I still know to this day by the name of Janelle LaBarbara. Little did I know that meeting her would lead to a dramatic change in my musical path that would echo on even a decade later. She hit me up and said that I should contact an email that she left in my inbox. That's exactly what I did. I let them know that I'd gotten this email from someone else and I was reaching out to ask why their email was being passed around. Might have been an afternoon or one day later, I got a response back and they told me the name was Manny Ramirez and that they were asked to help a band look for a guitarist before the next tour started, and that if I was interested, all I had to do was send them back a recording of myself playing the song called Army of Darkness by Incite. Instead of responding, I instantly got to work. 1 hour later, I emailed my recording. Manny let me know that it was quick of me to learn that song and that he wanted to get in touch with Incite's drummer, Zach. For the next step of the audition, fast forward to me meeting Zach downtown, he auditioned me by having me learn a couple more of their songs and playing them. Not only did I play their songs to his liking, we even had a freestyle jam session that I nicknamed Hotter Than Balls. Because it was hotter than balls when we came up with it on the spot. Though there's no recording of what it sounded like, just imagine AC/DC meets Eye of the Tiger. Then picture having power chords fall in the rhythm with saying the line, hotter than balls. Then palm muting an open drop D chord and letting that palm muted open chord ring out with its heaviness. Actually sounded cool, and I still remember nearly all of it even now. My ability to freestyle on guitar, along with Zach watching me shred outside of my audition, was probably one of the things that sealed the audition for me, since Zach noticed my own playing apart from playing their songs, and then proceeded to get on the phone with who I assumed was either their bassist at the time, Luis, or the singer, Richie Cavalera. If I remember right, it may have been a week or so until they closed auditions and decided on who to take with them, since I wasn't the only one who auditioned. I ended up getting a text from Richie telling me they chose me and that I could tell my friends and family. So what did I do when I read that text? I lied to my parents. I told them I didn't make the audition and they took someone else over me. My parents, crushed, were sad when I told them that. And then I told Tasha, we need to make a big poster with a message on it that says I made it. We went down to Walmart, got a hold of poster board, and the picture I showed at the beginning of this video is what she made on her own. I snuck the poster board into my house late at night. I positioned it in the dining room where it was impossible to miss. Then I waited till the next morning. After waking up, I came out and my mom was just super happy and my dad hugged me. Shortly after all that, we went to the post office so I could apply for an international passport, since I was traveling overseas. I still remember after the post office worker who took my photo for the passport, they asked what I'd be traveling for, and I told them. They were pretty psyched to hear that, and I told them, yeah, it's finally happening. Scary part, though, was it almost didn't happen, despite being chosen and having my passport and equipment ready. Why? I can only think that someone at the bakery I used to work at had indirectly something to do with why I caught a pretty bad case of mono. I know mono is referred to as the kissing disease, yet I kissed no one. So someone's spit somehow made it into my mouth. Only thing I could think of back then of how that was possible was before leaving to tour, I was at the break room at the bakery, and there was a bag of chips that was closed from someone else eating them. I had opened them and had a few myself. After that, this whole medical episode popped up. At a temperature of around 105, my eyes hurt so bad I had to wear shades, and the doctor at the hospital had to give me a low dose of steroids to bring me back up to speed. The doctor, whose name, funny enough, was Michael Jackson, he was the one who diagnosed my mono. Honestly, I'd felt so bad that I was starting to get worried if I would have had to be hospitalized much longer. Even though this happened 2 weeks out from beginning my first tour, the recovery time was around the same amount of time, and the infectious end of mono doesn't end for the first 18 months. Yet I'd made it to tour, and even though I was still a bit on the sluggish side of recovering, I stormed out the gate for my first show at Slim's in San Francisco, where we also did a photo shoot from a photographer for one set, while we went and did another photo shoot for the album after that. Funny memory of the first show. Between songs, Richie lied and told the audience it was my birthday, and for someone to give me a birthday shot to celebrate. A guy brought the shot up to me right in front of the rail toward the stage. I tried turning it down, but realized that would just cause a fuss, so I just took it and downed it while still feeling a bit on the sick side from mono. A baptism by alcohol, like legends before me. Anyone who has been here since the beginning knows the epic tale that came to be from my year that I spent in Incite. Some of the videos and photos playing on screen right now detail the highest of highlights from that year of my life. I not only had the rare honor of touring under the thrash legend himself, Max Cavalera, through his stepson's band in Incite, I got to meet some of the biggest legends in the rock and metal industry. I even got the super rare opportunity to be asked by Phil Anselmo himself from Pantera if I wanted to come out at the end of his show and play the outro to his song Bury Me in Smoke from Down, in front of over 5,000 raging Germans in lordly Germany. Many things happen to musicians on the road, but even then, I still don't know many tales told by touring artists, both small or great, that had as many things go down in 1 year as I had happen in my time with Incite. Having played somewhere around 130 shows in 1 year put me on a level of work ethic around the likes of what bands like Metallica play on a yearly basis. Having had no help of my own, stage and guitar techs meant I had to help not only load in and load out my own equipment every night, but also help load 3 bands worth of equipment every night as well. Proved that I had earned my stars and scars in that 1 year. Having recorded a music video at the Berlin Hall and in front of a live audience, despite the fact I hadn't written or recorded any of the music I was touring in support of, was still a huge honor. Barely anyone else can say they have them for themselves. Speaking of rare honors, this reminded me of when I was on my second US tour in 2013, and we were playing at the Reverb in Reading, Pennsylvania, and Max's guitar tech had me come over during setup and sound check because he told me Max wasn't exactly in love with his guitar tone lately. I remember Max told him his guitar was sounding like Chuck Berry music, and he was looking for something heavier. His tech asked me if I knew anything that would step up his tone. After basically handing me Max's guitar, I threw the strap over my shoulder and started turning knobs to Max's amp. After doing that, I went up on stage and checked the monitors to see how it sounded. Funny enough, the moment itself inspired a new riff that I wrote in the same moment I was testing Max's guitar. I still plan to use it in a song of my own one day. Aside from that, I liked how the guitar sounded, and I said I think we can have Max come try it out for himself. He had Max come up on stage and try it out. He gave that bit of metal grimace you usually see metalheads make when they hear a nasty riff or breakdown in a song. After that, Max used the tone I set for him for the rest of the US tour. An honor I still pride myself on for being allowed the chance to shape a guitar sound for a legend that once helped shape my style. A moment where things like that came full circle in its own special way. One other memory made was easily one of the top memories I ever made during that year. At the start of our first tour of the year in the United States in 2013, we were starting our tour at a venue called Brick by Brick in California. I walked over to the equipment trailer where most of our crew was hanging out at. Our manager and the wife of Max Cavalera, Gloria, approached me and said she had something to give me. I said, "What is it?" She handed me a letter. The actual letter is what you see on screen right now. As the video shows, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She told me this was the actual police patch that belonged to Officer James Niggemeyer. For those who aren't familiar, Officer James is the cop who shot down the killer, Nathan Gale, who took the lives of Jeff Mayhem Thompson, Aaron Stoney Hulk, Nathan Bray, and the most recognized among them, Dimebag Darrell from Pantera and Damageplan. Gloria had endowed a gift I never thought I'd be worthy of receiving, let alone from someone who walked and lived among a pantheon of metal music legends that I can now say used to manage me during my time in her son's band. It was never fully told to me why she gave this to me, but I don't believe she had to explain herself in order for me to understand why she chose me to possess such a deeply symbolic gift. For me, the gift said it all. Reflecting on the light leads me to reflect on the shadows that come with it. Want to know something truly crazy about all of this? I knew I wasn't meant to be an Incite after my third or fourth show I played with them in Vegas. You're hearing this from me publicly for the very first time, that I had already come to the realization that I wasn't meant to be in this band forever. The night of that show, I'd called my parents and told them that I'm freaking out and I can't be in this band. Having written it off as just having anxiety for such a dramatic change in the life of someone like me who wasn't even 22 years old yet and already seeing the world at a fast pace where you're waking up in a new city and state every day to play to hundreds and eventually thousands of strangers you've never met or may ever meet would be scary to a good amount of people. I'm still grateful for seeking counsel about what should I do about what I was going through by talking in a group chat made up of Arizona legends Patrick Flannery from St. Madness, Christian Lee Vasquez from Sectus, and big-time local metal scene supporter Gary Cox. As time kept going in this touring life, I had proven that what I felt from that night in Sin City wasn't simply anxiety or having began a new lifestyle I had long sought after. Time showed me that I already knew this wasn't meant to last. So why did I stay? Well, time has also shown all that I would have missed out on if I had just up and left suddenly. None of the memories would have existed. It would have all been a giant what-if question over the entire thing. Plus, I stayed for an entire year because I had a responsibility that I owed to Incite to help tour in support of their album All Out War, that had its touring cycle begin with me, and I saw it through to the end of that touring cycle that it ended with me too. I stayed when both Zach and Luis left Incite at the same time, leaving only Richie and I. I helped audition every drummer and bassist by getting rides from Mesa to Phoenix to audition people in the same practice storage space that Soulfly has practiced in since the late 90s. I even tried to expand my connection to being in this rare position by having my close friend, Chris Scoggins, come in and audition to try and become my touring mate as a drummer. I helped Incite by auditioning the very same drummer and bassist that Incite still has to this day, Christopher L. and Lennon Lopez. I'll say here for the record what I announced over 10 years ago. I was not dismissed from the band. I left 100% of my own will. Though I knew over a decade ago that it's been claimed that I was let go, I will not go into detail on that note, but instead will say that the truth always has its day and it won't need any public dispute for it to speak for itself. My ultimate reason for leaving that I made crystal clear back then was that I decided that it took going to a high place in the music industry to realize that I would never be the reflection of another man's dream. There's no pride of mine to be found giving someone else's gift to the world. Many make a living from playing in bands already established. For them, that's perfect. It means they achieved the success I hadn't gained for myself. I fulfilled my responsibility I owed of completing the album's tour cycle from beginning to end. One thing I'd like to clear up are any possibilities of thinking to oneself of, what if I'd stayed in Incite instead of choosing to leave? I'll answer that here and now. It wouldn't have lasted long even then. Yes, I would have put out an album or two under my creative vision. Yet the reason it still would have ended would have been because of my seizure disorder that arrived over 1 year and 3 months from the time I left in 2013. Someone like me with that type of disorder wouldn't bode well on a highly demanding tour schedule like the one I had already experienced for myself back then. I would have had to step down and be on the path I walked this past decade all the same. Everything happened in its due time. If you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much for taking the time to hear my side of life and insight 10 years later. As far as my life goals go, for any wondering about where am I at and what are my plans for music for the future, I don't have an answer for that. My life has taken the most eventful twists and turns to such a level that if I were to tell any one of you one thing or another, I'd feel like I'm setting everyone up for disappointment. Will there be music of my own outside of everything I've put up through my YouTube channel over the years? Yes, there will be. I decided long ago that no matter how famous or unknown I remain, that I owe it to myself to do something with all the demos I've cut over the years. I've come way too far to not give life to all that I've heard and played for myself. Without diving deep into thought of what still is yet to be, I'll give this moment to all that has already come to pass, and give great thanks to the fans who really made that 1 year of my life a time that's truly immortalized in more ways than one. I apologize to those whose names I'm not able to remember. Those who truly left a lasting impact in my life are Eric, Tennessee Triplet, rest in peace, Russ Taylor, Harvey and his kids that I met in New Mexico, and to my friends and family who were watching and supporting and coming out to whatever show was in their town. Thank you all. I'd like to bring the telling of this time of my life to a close by acknowledging two truly important people that were part of this part of my life. The first is the man whose email address led to my life being changed, Manny Ramirez. We may have only met a small handful of times, Manny, but every time we met, big things were always taking place. Whether it was our first meeting over email, or my first home show at the Marquee Theater in Tempe, Arizona, or my first autograph signing I was a part of alongside Max Cavalera and his kids at Asylum Records in Tempe. You were always cool, and it was because of that same cool side of you saw that I was worth being shown to Incite and the Cavalera family. I will always be thankful for you in this life and the next. Thank you for all you did, Manny. The last person I'd like to acknowledge is Corey Felix. Corey, you knew me before my time in Incite. You came to my home show, got the CD, the shirt, my signature guitar pick. You were a true fan from the beginning and a true friend to the end. You saw the musical sides of me that nearly all of the world still has yet to see. I knew that our friendship was equally valued on both sides when you told me what you let me know on one fateful night, that you never lived to see how fateful it would become. The words you told me, I will put up on the screen at the end. I still have something else in mind to immortalize your passion for what I do, because that passion carries me to my highest highs even now. Thank you, Corey.